Coming up, is the PS4 the life jacket Sony's been looking for? Google launches a brand new touchscreen notebook. Is China in a cyber war with the US? Twitter launches its ad integration. Is this a smart move? Should there be a Silicon Valley Nobel Prize? All that, and we're going to cover a lot more on this episode of Downloaded. Hello and welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we're going to gather the most opinionated voices in the tech field today and focus all that energy on the stories that are impacting the tech world. I am your host, Jim Louderback. Joining me today, I'm glad to have two guys I know really well and have worked with for a long time, for both of them. First of all, David Spark, Spark Media Solutions. He's a recovering comedian. He is a recovering journalist, and you can catch his writing up at thesparkminute.com. Good to see you, David. Thanks for joining us. And of course, Patrick Norton, star of Stage, Screen, and Techzilla.
Techzilla mostly.
Techzilla mostly. Yeah. When was your last movie, Patrick?
I've never made a movie.
Darn it. We're going to have to work on that one. So anyway, David, Patrick, in the house. We're going to start talking about the PS4, our first story. That's right, the PS4 sort of announced in New York this week. No price. We didn't get to see the hardware. We got the specs. I'm just going to go through a couple of the specs.
Mostly we got a lot of game trailers.
A lot of game trailers.
2, 4, maybe 6 hours of Sony executives showing game trailers. That's
By the way, if you want to know more about this story, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about it, but right here on Tech Feed, a lot of good stories from our folks at Tech Feed. You can see those just by scrolling up or down. Also, Rev3 Games, a lot of great coverage. We sent a bunch of people out to take a look at it. Let's start off with the CPU. An 8-core x86 AMD Jaguar CPU. Tell me about that CPU there, Patrick.
Very nice, you know, basically it's an APU basically means there's heavy-duty graphics and a CPU on a single chip. It's going to be inexpensive, it's going to be, you know, slower. Probably, basically, short answer is it's going to be a lot faster than an Xbox 360 or a...
Well, it better be. It's 6 years later.
Well, yeah, or a PS3. I mean, that's the raising the ground level.
Isn't that generally the idea for any new version?
One would hope. But it also means they've abandoned the core process.
Well, that's the important thing, is it's going to be easier to develop for, right?
We would hope.
We would hope. Because the core processor, I mean, the cell processor, everybody was just, I mean, they were just up in arms because it was so difficult to build for.
Yeah, I mean, the first year, it was what developers had told me is the first year everybody kind of stared at it and some games were made. And by the second and third year, they knew actually how to throw programming at the processor in the PS3 to actually get good-looking games out of it. So,
so let's talk about the graphics for a minute. A 1.84 teraflop AMD Radeon graphics engine with 18 compute units.
He's going to know more about this than I.
Well, so on the graphics side, is that a big deal?
Yeah, it's going to look a lot better than a PlayStation 3. I mean, no, look, here it's really funny, right? Because you've got Nintendo finally steps up and embraces the idea that, well, okay, there's a lot of people with HD TVs. I guess we got to go HD.
No, Nintendo released something they should have released 6 years ago.
I'm not arguing that fact. What I'm saying is, like, it's like Nintendo's made the reveal, PlayStation's kind of made the reveal. It's like, okay, holiday 2013, all right. Specs sound a lot like the Steam box we saw at CES, and a whole lot of games, and mostly what the thing, I gotta be honest with you, the big thing for me was like, wow, Sony wants to make gaming so social. They've got the share button, and they're tying it into Facebook and Twitter and everything in the planet. Now is it going to be...
But that whole share function is just so they can promote their own product. It's not for you and I to play better.
I'm not arguing, but for I'm told by the young folks that sharing the games on the YouTubes is a big deal, and this will make it easier for them to share the games on the YouTubes. I just keep thinking, like, is this going to be like the one-stop shopping center for people that want to crack social identities? Because Sony's had some trouble. Well, no, Sony's had some security issues.
Patrick Norton,
the last year.
Security, but go ahead.
And so now
are you concerned about security on the PS4, Patrick?
I'm always concerned about security, and I would have loved to have, I would have loved to have heard a little bit about how Sony's actually embraced, security to the point where I don't have to worry about everything in my life being taken over.
Patrick, that doesn't make good launch fodder. You know that. How many launches have you been to where they're like, and we're going to be safer than last time?
Well, yeah.
Safer than last time.
That's a real selling point, right?
No, but I was just interviewing Bruce Schneier, his big security guy, and he actually put a really good point about saying we're undergoing feudal security. We're just kind of beholden to companies like Sony and Google. Whatever they dictate is the security, we got to just kind of accept it. And as they change it, we got to keep accepting it. Yes, there are people like the EFF and the ACLU which sort of argue for us, but we just kind of have to accept their laws for security.
Yeah, we're kind of like the security serfs. Yeah, let's go back to the PS4 for a minute before we get.
I thought it was interesting the no SSD on this, which I think the whole SSD has been a complete fallacy.
Well, this is a cheap. It's hard drive storage because it's less expensive. They can add more in. You want a lot of storage, so you can store lots of these downloadable games.
Right.
They put SSD in, be a heck of a lot more expensive.
But not only that, I think it's been a fallacy in that it doesn't add any more speed. I think at all.
You're full of it.
No.
See this right here? This is an SSD. This thing boots faster, goes faster.
No, I had a Sony computer, SSD-based thing. It didn't boot any faster than a hard drive thing because I think it's
something wrong with that.
Yeah, something was wrong. Something was really wrong.
Trust me. I had a beautiful Core i7, brand new, 16 gigs of memory, just unbelievably spec'd out system, and I was like, it's slow. I'm waiting for stuff to open. I'm waiting for stuff to launch. It takes 3 days to start up. WTF is wrong here. And I realized it was the one computer I use right now that doesn't have an SSD in it. The biggest way to notice what an SSD does for a computer is put an SSD in your notebook for a couple months, and then have someone secretly put the regular hard drive in, and you will be flinging your computer across the room trying to figure out what
I had a miserable experience with an SSD.
Something was wrong, and you should bring it in and have Patrick take a look at it. I'm sure he'll be happy to fix it
it's
for you.
It's long gone and went back to Sony.
So I have an SSD in here that I put in about a year ago, 6 months ago. It works great. My home computer, which is much faster, water cooled and everything, doesn't have it. And I look at that thing and it's slow.
Yes.
And it's the SSD. So, but it's not a big deal for the PlayStation, I don't believe. Back to Blu-ray, 3 USB ports, 802.11, BGN, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, HDMI, Bluetooth, optical audio, analog. This sounds like a PC.
It is. It's
probably a better PC than you have.
What do you think it'll run Windows?
I think people will get it to run Windows if the price is low enough. People will figure out how to make it run Windows.
It'll run Blu-ray. They didn't say that.
It'll Linux. Will it run Linux? Probably.
We'll find out very quickly after it launches.
Does anybody care about consoles anymore, David?
Console games?
Yeah.
I don't care about them because if I own one, I wouldn't get any work done. I don't buy them anymore.
So, but in general, are consoles a dying?
But that's why they led this whole thing with games.
Yeah.
They led it with games because they know that the software sells the hardware doesn't sell itself. So their attitude is, why do I even bother showing the hardware? We should just show the software, and people go, I got to have that game. Oh, if I want that game, I got to buy this box. But they didn't show the box. But what I thought was funny was when the exec presented it, and he was interviewed afterwards, he goes, oh, I guess it was my fault. I didn't realize that people wanted to see the box.
Okay, what would your advice be, David, for the marketing department at Sony to make the PS4 the biggest hit ever?
Well, what they're doing, they got to just have one exclusive kick-ass game that everyone's got to buy.
Just one?
One helps.
One in the beginning of a series of them. But it's so funny, while Xbox is turning into this sort of media center that's going to be the core of your home theater and your entertainment system and television in your home, Sony's sitting here like, got more games, woo, new PlayStation. Like, I don't feel... I can't decide if it's cool that Sony's really, really focusing on games or if they're completely watching another opportunity sail right by them.
Did anyone mention the fact that they had to release this before Xbox made their announcement?
Well, they didn't have to.
Well, that was their claim, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't even think, that's my attitude, that's just a stock price play. It's like we have to announce this to sort of buoy up the stock price, so when Xbox, makes their announcement, ours doesn't, drop to the floor.
Well, Lord knows Sony could need a boost in their stock price. But, the guys at Microsoft are all up in Sony's grill for doing this because they said, they released too early, they're blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's not coming out till Christmas, so.
Right, so nobody's going to buy any games. No. You're not going to sell a single PS3 between now and then.
Maybe nobody's buying any games now. Maybe nobody's buying any PS3s right now. Maybe they've decided the curve is flattened out enough where it's time.
Maybe.
Because at some point, you have to move to the next console.
You don't think the big winner in all this is? AMD. They got both their CPU and the Radeon graphics in there.
If they sell it for a high enough price that they actually make money off of it.
I'm sure AMD's going to make money on this, don't you?
Yeah, but don't they always sell these consoles at like cost or below? Just
at the beginning, and then by year 7, you're making bank.
By
Because
year
it's so
7.
cheap to make them.
That's a long event horizon in today's market.
Well, these guys have a long, long view, as does the person who's behind, or the company behind our next story, which would be Google. That's right, Google's got a new Chromebook. It's called the Chromebook Pixel. And here's what they claim about Chromebook sales. The #1 notebook on Amazon. 10% of all notebook sales at PC World, which is a big computer seller in the UK. Specs, speaking of specs here, Core i5, local flash storage, LTE Wi-Fi, and get this, you can probably buy 2 PS4s for the price of this one. $1,300, maybe 4 PS4s for the price of 1 Chromebook. Patrick, do you buy this whole Chromebook crap?
I'm actually.
I think that's a leading question. I'm just gonna.
Not at all.
Okay, first of all, they're having phenomenal sales in terms of yes, if you look at Amazon as a source of sales, they have the Samsung Chromebook is the #1 selling notebook on Amazon. Because guess what? It's probably the least expensive functional notebook on Amazon. It's like $250, right? In terms of the Pixel itself, I am fascinated because I want the hardware specs.
Right.
If it was $1,000, it would be like a third less than a comparably configured MacBook Pro. Okay, I'm probably a little exaggerating there, but it's a couple hundred, a couple $300 less than a MacBook Pro, and it's got that ridiculous screen and it's touch screen. It's just.
Right, the ridiculous screen and the touch screen I think are really interesting. The pixel density they claim is higher than any other pixel density on any notebook.
By like 8 or 12 pixels
Right.
per inch, right? Which is, but still, it's like compared to most
I can
of the.
see that.
Compared to, you can see that when you're looking at when you have text, when you have small text, when you have finely detailed pictures. What I'm looking at, we were talking about it yesterday. It's like okay, the Chromebooks are probably a little pokey, which would make sense, right, for an incredibly inexpensive machine. But I look at this and I'm like, where are the Chrome applications that are going to take advantage of a Core i5?
That's okay. So that's an interesting point. So if you saw the ad that they did, it was trying to make it look like like an Apple ad, like when they were releasing their. But the huge difference between their ad and the Apple ad is in all the Apple ads, they show you actually interacting with applications.
Right.
Like now I can do this and I can do this. And literally in 30 seconds, I've moved to 7 different applications. In this ad, they show you a video space thing of a video and that's it. Like you're not doing anything on this. And the reason is there's nothing built, not even their tools aren't built for this computer.
Well, look, the Chromebook is an interesting model. You've got to be always connected to use it. You have to, as they say at Google, live in the cloud.
You get 32 or 64 gigabytes of local storage. For
What are you going to store
version.
in that local storage, Patrick?
You can store a lot in 64 gigabytes.
Can you actually, I was just asking before, can you actually do anything on this computer that when it's not connected?
Yes.
That was confident.
Besides looking at the pretty screen and trying to pick out the pixels.
You can use it without an internet connection. You are just not going to be able to get anything that's not on your hard drive if it doesn't have an internet connection. You know what I mean? Like in the hard drive, look, it's not a 512 gigabyte hard drive that you're going to be working on a giant video on.
Well, you can't load any application on
You don't want to do
You can
video.
load Chrome applications.
But you don't want to do video editing on this
locally?
thing. Come on.
It's a decently spec'd out Core i5 machine. It has the potential. It has the potential to be a content creation machine because it has the processing power and it has the physical specs to be able to do some really powerful stuff. Is there any actual Chrome OS application that can even remotely take advantage of that?
Well, but also you don't want to have your video stored in the cloud and edit the video that way if you're going to do real hardcore HD video editing.
32 gigabytes of local storage on the Wi-Fi model, 64 gigabytes of local storage on the
LTE one.
On the LTE. So it has a start. I mean, okay, you're not going to be editing your feature film on it, but then again, you probably wouldn't be using the Chrome OS to edit your feature film.
So look, I brought up Amazon's page right here, and you can take a look at the prices here. $249 for current 11.6-inch
One
Chromebook.
of these things is not like the...
$559. I'm going to click on the Samsung Chromebook to see what the ratings are like. This is the #1 selling 4 stars, so some people seem to like it.
There's so little that's under 4 stars on Amazon anyways.
Not true. Not true. I shop a lot on Amazon.
Oh, I shop a lot on Amazon too.
There's not much below 3 stars on Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also remember when
CNET,
90% of CNET's ratings were between like 7 and 7.5.
Okay.
So I have a Chromebook at home, and I've got one of the original ones just to play around with, and I like it, but it's not that useful. It actually sits in the wine closet.
It's not
it's
a great appliance. It's a great appliance.
Exactly.
I found it's a great computer to leave on your coffee table in front of the TV. That's what it's been perfect for, like the iPad.
But I would use a tablet for that.
Yeah, and
right?
the iPad's more
Why
fun.
would I get a Chromebook when I could have a tablet?
Because you can't type very fast on an iPad and Facebook. You know?
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Or no, you can get that little. You can
Then
get
why
that little
wouldn't I
attachment
okay,
for
so,
the iPad.
So, Mr. Patrick Norton, smart guy, why wouldn't I get one of the new Windows tablets instead? With the little keyboard.
I'm gonna get some really nasty email about this one, but I'm just gonna say it. I'd be buying a Chromebook long before I'd be buying a Surface RT right now.
Okay, there you go.
The full size, the Surface Pro, is really tempting. The Surface RT, which is something more affordable, I'm not really buying.
Well, the Surface Pro price is about the same as this Chromebook.
Okay,
Sure.
So what would you buy, the Chromebook or the Surface
Chromebook or Pro?
Who's paying?
You're buying out of your own money. You have to buy one of them.
I'm not buying either one of them. I got to finish the
All right, Patrick,
transmission of my
here.
truck.
Pretend this is a $1,200 bill.
Here you go.
Okay, what are you
just
buying?
made $5.
I'm buying a Chromebook because I've had a chance to use the Surface Pro, and now I'm going to find out what the Chromebook feels like.
Oh,
Patrick
you don't even
Norton,
know.
spending my money on the Chromebook.
But you know what? I would just say the Surface Pro probably can run more powerful applications than the Chromebook is. Do I get the $5 now?
No, it's a full Windows 8 machine.
Yeah.
So the question is, or the other thing is like, okay.
So that's going to be a more useful tool than the Chromebook, even without
Right
even looking at.
now-
Or not, I mean the Pixel.
How about this? How about
the
this?
Pixel.
How about this? Google pushes out the Chromebook Pixel so they can create a tool to develop more powerful Chrome applications, to extend the Chrome operating system and create a new, larger market for it.
Right, that's the idea. But are these both first generation? Yeah, they're both first generation. So I think the Windows machine looks better.
No. The Chromebook is not a first generation. Remember, this is like the third version that they've come out with.
The Pixel's the first generation.
Yeah,
but
but
the Pixel's actually like the second or third generation.
This is a
generation.
nice looking machine. I have it up on my
It's a
screen
beautiful
right here.
piece of hardware.
It's very Apple-esque in its look and its sort of
They went to
chrominess.
nothing, just like with the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7, they went to nothing but the finest Chinese manufacturers to create a good-looking piece of hardware. And they spec'd it out high.
All right, I got to pull out my Nexus 4. I'm not sure. I mean, the Nexus 4 is good looking, but I don't know. That's really good looking.
Well, there you have it.
We'll see what happens.
You shouldn't have bought a Nexus 4. You should have waited for a Chromebook Pixel.
I can't put a Chromebook Pixel in my pocket.
Need bigger pockets.
There you go.
Get bigger pockets.
Gain weight, get bigger pants.
We're going to move on to our next story before I do gain weight and get bigger pants. We're going to talk about the Chinese army hacking story, which this is one of those stories that just keeps going and going and going. Turns out now that it is actually, they've traced the hackers to a building in, I think, Shanghai. This is a great quote from the guys who did it, a company called Mandiant, Kevin Mandiant. He said, the guys who are doing the hacking, either they're coming from the inside of Unit 61398, which would be the building, or the people who run the most controlled, most monitored internet networks in the world are clueless about thousands of people generating attacks from this one neighborhood. Otherwise, they're either in the building or they're stealing the Wi-Fi and they're on the outside. What do you think, Patrick? Surprised it's a state effort?
I think that this is a fascinating story. So the last year, we've been hearing more and more revelations about these large companies that are like, we're being hacked from China. So Kevin Mandiant, the person who was quoted in the New York Times there, Mandiant Technologies, they're like, we've traced back, they sort of have these like multi-syllable letter names for like all the hacking kind of locuses, the nexus points of these hacks. So they traced one of these back, and I can totally envision them looking up at Google Maps and being like, no. It's like the second. It's like a campus for the computer espionage group the computer security group or the computer attack group. It starts feeling like a William Gibson novel.
Yeah, totally.
Of the Second People's Liberation Army. So like this massive military group. Like literally, he basically said it. Look, either they're the source of this traffic, or they're clueless about a massive source of hacking traffic that's coming basically out of their network. And it's fascinating, and it's a little bit terrifying, because at what point does this become an act of war?
Well, it already is an act of war.
Okay, so the Chinese government is claiming they have nothing to do with this. And they say the allegations are, quote,
shocked to see that there's gambling going
unprofessional,
on.
and that they have laws against hacking. Again, this is what they're claiming. But Chinese government is in no way saying we'll work with the U.S. government to find these people. And also, for a country that is known for monitoring so much internet behavior, they probably
Look,
know
if it
what this
walks like a
is.
duck and it quacks like a duck, it's obviously a Chinese hacker. Is this the beginning of Cyberwar? Is it? I mean, is it?
The Cyberwar, this is the beginning of Cyberwar has been around for years. It's one of the coolest things about going to something like DEF CON or Black Hat is running into people, you know, who are basically, they work for the Navy, they work for, you know, the Department of Defense, they work for the Air Force, they work for the NSA, and they have terrifying and fascinating stories about people trying to attack the network infrastructure that has been critical for the American military, or you talk to people at major banks about the attacks that are being made on the banking
Okay, but
systems.
now it's out in the open and it looks like it's state-sponsored. Are we going to see this escalate into more of an open warfare? Is it going to go back under the covers and the clandestine stuff that happens?
I think it's going to be an awesome conversation from basically the next Secretary of State.
Yeah.
like because life's not exciting enough. The next Secretary of State now has to have a little one-on-one with China.
I got to point out, I'm amused by the name of the hacking group is called the Comment Crew, which is, I'm sorry, the wimpiest name of
Did they call themselves that?
Oh, I don't know. I think they called themselves the Comment Crew. It just seems so. I'm going to be worried about some guys making comments.
Well, they're supposed to lull you into a false sense of security.
Well, are we
that could be
talking
it,
about the
ID.
RFCs, the request for comments, that are the documents that have actually created all the foundation for the internet?
So, guys, how do we battle against
Commenters?
this? What do we do?
First
Can we do
thing we
anything?
do is we cut all the cables across the internet around the world and isolate the United States. That's humor.
How about we
by the
isolate
way.
every single computer? Let's go back to SneakerNet.
Yeah, I'm just going to walk over to the Netflix office and get myself
if we
some
do that,
movies.
then nobody's going to buy the Google Pixel.
It's true. It's true. The Google Pixel just doesn't work without the internet.
This comes back to our conversation about feudal security, and at some point, maybe the Department of Homeland Security has to get really serious about, you know, packet inspection and looking at this and organizing. I mean, basically, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you're spending a lot more money on security, lest you find out that some nitwit who loaded a, you know, piece of trialware off a third-tier gaming site that basically was a front for somebody to put a bot on your system. Like, there's nothing more embarrassing than finding out that, like, some incredibly expensive piece of technology your company's been working on for years has just been snuck out the back door of your network because somebody loaded crappy code.
Or someone clicked on a link in an email. Somebody got spearphished.
Yeah, you know, it's
More likely in that case.
It sounds really ridiculous, but this is the 21st century.
So there's nothing you can do. We should all just go put
I
our
didn't say that.
tinfoil hat on and go.
No, that is exactly
look for the
not
flying
what I
spaghetti
said.
monster.
What I said is we actually
I'm sorry, do tinfoil?
Don't bring the
Hold on,
flying
do
spaghetti
tinfoil
monster into
hats
this.
work?
See, I brought you to a stop.
Don't bring the tinfoil hats into this. Excuse me. Tinfoil hats are good. Leave my flying spaghetti monster out of this. It means computer security has to get a lot more serious, and it means that if we are going to deal with it on a national level, the Department of Homeland Security has to step up.
Yeah. If I touch his noodly appendage, will it protect me?
Have you been touched by his noodly appendage?
I have.
I will be at RSA next week covering this very story, in fact.
All right. As
That'll be
usual,
an
we've
interesting
devolved into a
conversation.
discussion that has absolutely nothing to do with what we were talking about, and it's all my fault. So we're going to talk about Twitter because you know what? If we're going to get hacked, we might as well make money on it. I guess that's what Twitter thinks. They've opened their advertising up to third-party software, and this will allow advertisers to automate the injection of ads into your Twitter stream. So rather than having to handcraft them by humans, we can now automate them via computers, which I can't wait till it gets hacked because, well, it's going to be interesting. Is this automation a good thing for Twitter, David?
Yeah, because it's allowing all these networks to connect into their ad platform. So all these other ad networks that are out there can now sell Twitter advertising. So they just have more people that can buy ads on Twitter. Of course.
Well, is Twitter going to make money from this? I mean, they're trying to figure their advertising model out for decades.
Well, supposedly they made what, something like 545 million, supposedly.
Yeah.
Wasn't that it? But their burn rate, I'm sure, is out of control, and they've also got the history too of how much they've spent.
Do you think Twitter, Patrick, ought to be a sort of a publicly funded utility?
No.
Why not?
Yes, and Google should be a publicly funded utility. And Microsoft. Let's take care of this whole venture capital problem and innovation by basically taking over any new business that seems to be useful to a bunch of Americans and nationalizing
Can you
it.
say Solyndra?
Can you say communist?
So what do you think about this advertising thing on Twitter, Patrick?
You know, they want to bring ad networks in.
Well, they got to make money, right?
Yeah.
So this is what they look. They're like, we got to do whatever we can do to make money.
Yeah.
They created an ad network. Let's make everyone have access to it. So I mean, this is the best they can do right now.
I'm still irked at the whole Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Like I paid $20 for an awesome client for OS 10
for Twitter, right?
For Twitter,
yeah.
Because Twitter basically bought most of the good free clients and turned them into crap. And so anybody who's remaining, because Twitter has to control everything in their environment.
This is the problem: is if you start a company based on another startup, you're just rolling the dice.
Zynga.
So another interesting Twitter story of the week, because we're going to tie it hacking, was the fake MTV hack, which I actually have the image up here. TechCrunch all over them, a risky ploy for attention. They pretended to hack their own Twitter account and ended up putting up words about, tweets about rock stars, and I think it was just stupid. Did you read about this story?
Did they do it with any sense of humor, or?
Naughty comments about musicians. Wait a minute, look at this one. Oh my God, we hacked ourselves because it's the coolest thing to do.
When they did it, they said we hacked ourselves?
No, it's just so stupid, and there's this huge response to it. I mean, they basically hacked themselves and started promoting the BET experience. I don't know.
There's cool with, as someone who has worked in comedy, sometimes jokes fall flat. And this maybe is one that
but should you
fell flat.
But is hacking even something that you can make jokes out of?
Yes.
Well, it's like we now make jokes of terrorism, so why not make jokes of hacking?
If it had been really cool, we'd be going like, how about MTV with that extraordinary mock hack they played on themselves?
Yeah.
Look, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I guess in this case, didn't work.
Yeah, I think there's a good place for some fake Twitter accounts for MTV on that one.
There you
go. All right, so Twitter ads, very interesting. We'll see if that actually helps them make money. Let's talk about the latest, I guess, the prize. This is really kind of interesting. It's a breakthrough prize in life sciences that was announced this week from Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Yuri Milner, a $15 million prize rewarding researchers at curing intractable diseases, extending human life. Basically, they're giving 5 prizes out a year, like the Nobels, for life sciences breakthroughs. They announced the first group. I think it's a great thing to do, but do prizes like this work to drive real results, Patrick?
I don't know. The X Prize seems to have worked.
What about the Nobel Prize?
Well, then, different tool. I mean, the X Prize works because they created an individual challenge and said, solve this challenge. And,
right.
And all of a sudden we are on the cusp of having affordable, maybe not for us, but the beginnings of affordable space travel, right? And it's incredible. That was all started by this crazy situation. The X Prize were set up. DARPA has created challenges over the years that have created, again, companies have been created just to create technology or solve technological problems.
But also, in all the cases, the X Prize, they spend more money than they win from the prize. And so it's definitely the money is not the thing. It's always the recognition that does it, which drives more money later on.
Or the lucrative government contract that will allow them to recover all of their
But look, this is not one of those prizes where there's a single winner. I mean, it's one of those foundations where they're going to be giving out 5 annual prizes, $3 million in prizes
Isn't there already
to
a
people.
Nobel Prize
But I like
for
the fact
medicine?
that they're giving it away to extending human life, which means people who've been working on cryogenics will finally get their due.
Walt Disney was a man ahead of his time.
There you go.
Is this the right area for us to focus on? I mean, if all the things that you could reward research and development in, is life sciences the right place?
I'd prefer to have an entire generation of kindergartners taught how to read, but it's not my $15 million.
So you could give money to kindergarten teachers. That would probably not be a bad thing.
There we go.
No, but what I thought was all interesting about this is Sergey Brin used this as an opportunity to show off the Google glasses.
Yet again.
Yeah, because he wore them at the event.
Well, Yuri Milner, who is one of the is an investor from Russia, invested $200 million in Facebook, made a boatload. Is really one of the more interesting guys in Silicon Valley these days. One of the reasons why he was so excited to do is he's got a couple of family members who have some, cancer and curable diseases. So there is an ulterior motive, but I think it's an ulterior motive that'll benefit all of us.
I think we'll be curious. I don't know. Maybe
What's going to help us more, the PS4 or this prize?
Depends on how you define help.
Yeah.
If help is keeping people off the streets and out of hacking.
PlayStation 3 is a useful tool for folding at home.
So I was going to ask the question, David, what the cynical take was, but you answered it already.
There you go.
We're going to move on to a privacy story. This is kind of interesting. Actually, So the story is a Canadian story, and there are only a few of you in Canada, but it's interesting for that. But I think the broader implications.
You only have a few viewers in Canada? Or
Well, compared to all of the viewers, there are only a few viewers in Canada. Can I describe the story, or are you just going to go in and babble on about stuff?
Go on. Right. I've been invited to talk, right?
Only speak when spoken to, David. Okay. No, you have. But let me just introduce the story a little bit, and then I'll let you actually, David, why don't you tell us about the story? What's the story about?
The story is Court of Appeal in Ontario has ruled that if a cell phone is not password protected, the police making arrests can make a search without a warrant.
So actually pretty interesting. In Canada, they're saying, look, you don't password protect your phone. We find your phone. We can just rifle through it and look for any wrongdoing you may have done, right?
Right. Well, so I actually was digging into this, and this is kind of a really big deal here in the U.S.
Yes.
In that every state there's been a different saying about this. So bottom line is, if you're arrested, they can look at your wallet and that kind of thing. But the thing with the phone is, you can dig really deep. You can get location information. You get files. I mean, there's a lot you can get through a phone. So all the states are different. Massachusetts, you don't need a search warrant.
State by state in the U.S. there are different laws.
Yeah, so if you're going to make a crime, California, you can make, they can look through your cell phone. In Ohio, you do need a
if you
search
with
warrant.
or without a password, do they have to? Are you required to turn over your password?
Now that's interesting. None of these talk about the password, though. The only one was the Canadian one, was talked about the password. But this is, I mean, it's all over, literally all over the map. State by state, it changes.
Is there an expectation of privacy that we should have with our phones, or should we just expect that if it's in our phone, we should just let it go? Patrick?
Well, my political science professor from college would say, you have no expectation of privacy. Don't keep anything written down that you don't want them to find, right? Because she had spent a bunch of time working with people who had been like Russian dissidents, and they have an entirely different view. You know what I mean? Like, people who are Russian dissidents before Glasnost have a really interesting concept of security for information, right? Because they were in a very scary place where people had very scary powers over them.
Right.
In this case, it's kind of creepy. Like, so let's say I look shifty, cop decides they have probable cause, and then they go through, they start going through my cell phone. One of the things that started the kind of, and this will eventually go to the Supreme Court. But one of the things that started this, I think it was a police officer in arrest, thought the suspect was about to call someone back to finish arranging a drug deal, and I apologize for not having it memorized, but I think the police officer took advantage of it and either texted or dialed to pretend to be the suspect to make the deal.
Yeah, right.
So getting to your issue about privacy, this again, I'm going back to Bruce Schneider, a quote from him,
okay, cool.
from that I interviewed him. He goes, "Privacy isn't about keeping secrets. Privacy is about having control over your information and how it's disseminated and used." So when somebody gets access to your information, what you're really wondering is how you lost control over that information. And so the big issue is, how much are we able to control our own data?
So, how much should we be able to control our own data? Should we have an expectation that if the phone is...
No, but that's, I think that's, well, it's a combination of personal responsibility, like you lock your own door, but also, corporate responsibility, that lock is not going to break.
Right.
Well,
so practically speaking, it sounds like the laws are all over the map. If you're in Canada, tough luck. You probably ought to password protect your phone. What should we do in general? What should people do to protect their personal information if they're worried? As it goes to a phone, is a password enough?
Quit Facebook.
Well, no, but Matt Honan, Wired found it out with his story, because password is not enough.
Right.
Because there's all these back doors you can do. So, I mean, my feeling, privacy is one thing, but my feeling is also just have multiple backups should things, fail.
All right, so David, how do you protect your phone?
I right now just have a password on it.
Password,
that's it.
Patrick.
My phone is encrypted. It only opens with a password. If somebody tries to basically access it too many times, I think it'll wipe itself.
Patrick's a criminal.
So if you accidentally forget your own password and you keep typing it in, it'll just blow up on
Well,
you?
yeah, it'll take several. I think it ends up taking several days of attempting to log in. But
Well, but it, you know, Patrick, your method seems like it makes a lot of sense. Is this something built into the phone that you're using, or is it software that you download?
it's essentially built into the phone.
Which phone?
So,
iPhone.
Yeah.
iPhone. Yeah.
I mean, look. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but you know. But you know, I kind of had this really creepy moment where I was like, okay, my phone suddenly becomes, it's my phone, it's my navigational tool, it has the location of my home, it has the addresses, you know, the numbers and addresses of my closest friends, my professional worker, you know, relationship.
Yeah, and then
there's
if you have,
access
like,
to banking information. So
Yeah,
you know, a lot of stuff I don't automate passwords for a lot of stuff inside my phone.
Okay, here's a feature.
Me neither, and the attitude of one master password. But the same thing.
Yeah.
My phone is access to everything.
Yeah. Here's a feature I want on the phone. Some sort of near-field communication that can sense my own personal aura. So then when it's more than like 3 feet from me,
A little Bluetooth chip inside.
something like that, when it's more than 3 or 4 feet from me, it automatically goes into lockdown mode and is unusable and the information is scrambled.
As long as it doesn't mean
You know, Dave Matthews, his part, the New Era, he's got a kind of an awareness type tool that's kind of could solve that problem.
I'm ready to go.
It's perfect until they cut your arm off so they can use your phone.
So you guys are scaring me. I'm definitely putting a password on my phone. And I think I'm putting a time
You don't have
bomb
a
on it,
password
too.
on your phone?
Password on your phone?
That's awesome. That's crazy talk.
All you do is look. I just swipe.
Let it go, Jim.
Bye-bye phone. We're going to move on to our next story, which is another privacy story. Actually, it's a piracy story, excuse me. The RIAA saying that you guys know Google put in these algorithms so that torrent sites and pirate sites, et cetera, would go down the rankings when people search for things to hide them from people so people wouldn't rip as many things off. Well, apparently the RIAA says, your algorithms suck, Google. They don't work. Everything's going back up there. Does Google even care about this, Patrick?
I don't even know what to say about Google and piracy at this point.
This is the feudal security issue. Same thing. They could do whatever they want, practically, it seems. The only thing that would have to happen is they would have to be sued, and then lawyers get involved. I mean,
I get a sense that Google tends to pay lip service to all this stuff.
in this case is a perfect example of that.
And YouTube, another great example. So on YouTube, there was a story in the Journal a couple weeks ago where, you know, even though they've been sued up, down, right, and sideways, and they've built all this content ID matching, there's all kinds of Disney movies on YouTube. You can go watch Toy Story right now.
Really?
All unfettered and fun. Yeah?
How do you find it?
Just search for Toy Story. Full video, movie.
You guys keep talking.
But on a Google search, just a plain Google search?
Okay, so go to YouTube. Patrick's going to do it now, but if you go to YouTube, Patrick's like, I got to keep my son occupied this afternoon.
I own the Blu-rays, so do me a favor, don't sue me, MPAA.
No, you're on YouTube. So if you go to Toy Story full movie, part 1, see what comes up
Have you done
there.
this before?
Yeah, look at that. Look at that, part 1, 1995, Toy Story.
Oh, it's crazy. Oh, that's the trailer.
Oh, Toy Story full movie.
I'm not getting any Toy Story here.
I am, if you look up there, right there.
I see a
Toy
live
Story.
action Toy Story movie.
Well, there's Toy Story in reverse, which is pretty funny, but look, up
But
on
hold
the
it,
screen.
Toy Story full. I see something that's 51. Yeah, full movie. Real,
Toy Story
Oh no,
3.
that's real Toy
But
Story.
we're watching it up. See the screen over there. Those of you watching on,
And that is the full movie.
that's the full movie, part 1. It's going right there, and luckily they
And
cut
look,
it off
there's a
so that we don't
pre-roll
get
ad.
screwed. Thank you, Roger. Smart producing. Thank you very much for pulling that out before they actually showed the movie. But it's there. But back to my point. Google tends to pay lip service to this stuff. I'm not sure they actually are really serious about protecting privacy. Not privacy. Protecting copyright.
Well, are they even responding to this argument? I mean, they responded saying that we're doing whatever we can and we're doing this, but they didn't respond to RIAA's claim that all these illegal sites are coming up top in search results are not getting buried. I mean, they just ignored it completely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't respond to articles like this as well in public, by the way. If I were Google,
yes.
I would say I would have a private response.
I mean,
that
the
was somewhat
conversation might
pointed.
be, gee, RIAA, if you would actually do what we told you to do for search engine optimization, and you paid attention to fundamental SEO tools, maybe the legitimate sites would rank higher than private sites.
But in the end, think about the motives for the RIAA for going public with this. I mean, we all can bitch about the RIAA, and they're not the smartest organization in the world, let's face it. But You got to think these guys went to Google and said, Google, this is not working. Work with us here. Come on, make it happen.
Well, I'm sure there were a lot of private. Yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of private conversations before that went public. I can't imagine this is the first. They're hearing it. Yeah.
So you got to imagine there's some frustration going on inside of Google around this, but inside RIAA, they must be really frustrated.
Far more. Yes,
so
definitely.
Is it?
But I think also this is just endemic of a much larger problem in the music industry, in that just just getting people to move to legit, digital music services.
But most of the research indicates that there has been a huge growth in legit music services.
Oh, there definitely
and there
is.
has been a reduction in file trading, and they have legally killed off most of the file trading sites.
Well, not according to this. There's what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 of them.
Yeah, but the RIAA still has lobbyists that are trying to turn over, the doctrine of first sale, so that we can't legally resell CDs or you know what I mean? Like, the RIAA is not going to be done until all of the musicians are enslaved, and we have to pay $25 every time we listen to a song. That's the RIAA's goal. Is that we still listen to music, but we pay a ridiculous amount, and we pay a licensing fee per song. And we can't download.
That's
a
their
song.
mission statement.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big RIAA fan. In case
Really?
it's not obvious, I mean.
Let's talk about algorithms in general for a minute. I mean, have we reached the extent of algorithms and what they can do here? I mean, is the RIAA asking for something that really just isn't possible?
I think if Google wanted to black hole, these searches, they could black hole these searches.
I'm sorry, how difficult is this? They know the sites, they have the index of all the songs. You match the two up and you bury it.
But it's like whack-a-mole. Once you whack one, another's going to pop up over here.
Well, they can make a pretty good dent on this right now. I mean,
but that would also be them saying that they are the gatekeepers on this. And to a certain degree, they are the gatekeepers to the content that's also, well, duh, they are the gatekeepers of what shows up in the content search.
I like this whole process.
What
constantly
makes
correcting
David,
yourself.
let's you and I just walk off. Patrick got an argument with himself for a minute here.
I was reading an article recently and pointed out that Google results maybe show like 30% of everything that Google has kind of spidered and searched through on the internet.
Right, I know, because when it shows you 20 million results, you can't actually look through 20 million.
No, and and obviously,
it cuts you off at a certain page. Have you ever tried to actually go through it all?
I'm glad that you have. I'm sorry, Patrick, I cut you.
No, but you can't. It cuts you off at
I'm just laughing at the image of
hundred.
Page down, page down,
No,
page
just
down.
a few hundred you're going through. You see millions, but you can only go through a few hundred.
But you know what I mean? So I think Matt Cutts, he's a smart guy.
Matt Cutts. Who's Matt Cutts? He's the
Google search guy.
He's the guy who's the forward-facing guy from Google Search.
And he's a
he has
very,
a blog,
very bright
really
guy.
nice guy, great blog. Search for Matt Cutts.
But basically, like, Google has more than enough smart people to make all of these links go away. They obviously have a reason they don't want to, either because there are legitimate uses for these sites, or there are legitimate uses for torrents, or because they just want to see if the RIAA wants to sue them and try to make them control. You know what I mean? It's an interesting First Amendment thought. Is there a First Amendment right to be able to search for this stuff, or is it just, fluff?
Am I allowed to search for things that are illegal?
Well, this is a fight that librarians have been in for hundreds of years.
Oh, and there have been cases from years and years ago when we were at ZDTV of journalists getting arrested because they were searching on child pornography for a story.
Right. Well, look at Abby Hoffman steal this book, right? I mean, that book was illegal. No, it wasn't. But everyone stole it anyway.
I think it was
That's
illegal.
about all the
was
time we have
write.
for Downloaded. We're just going to go away, and Patrick's going to argue with himself for a while. I actually want to thank David Spark for showing up. Patrick Norton, thank you very much. Always fun to mince words with you guys. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything else, post them right down there in the comments section. I'm going to encourage these guys. We'll all be in there talking about it. If anybody from the RIAA wants to show up, we'd be happy to have a conversation with you as well. Or Google. So I want to know what they're doing with their algorithms.
Sony, or the Chinese Army.
The Chinese Army. We're going to look for the whole Chinese Army to show up. Until next time, you've been watching Downloaded. Thank you.